We are live. I am pale blue. I don't know why I'm pale blue, but today I am pale blue.
Oh, I can make myself a little.
You look fine. You do not need to adjust you.
Oh, oh, hold on.
I respect that.
Yeah, hold on. I got to tell her that I'm doing a show now.
Okay.
Okay. Uh, okay. Oh, death.
What?
Yeah. I,
You went from
I,
electrician to
I know.
death.
I know. One of my friends passed away unexpectedly yesterday,
Oh
and sort of our
no.
friend group is sort of shocked and stunned by it, and like not close. Like I hadn't talked to her for 10 years, and but it's like you just as we get older, we get these moments, right,
Yeah.
where you just we have all of this. You just remember that you're old and that you're getting older, and the people around us. I look at my parents and all of the
Yeah.
funerals that they've gone to, and so just spend time, reach out,
Yeah.
think about the people. Like I think that we are in this time where our phones and our media have sequestered us to the point that friendships and relationships that we love are given a backseat, and we don't take time. You're really good at maintaining contact and gathering friends at uh, haunted castles and playing
Yeah.
games with them, and I think that's really great. I think you put a lot of work into connecting with your friends, and I think like I have regrets. I definitely have regrets. I have regrets that people who I really had no reason to not like them a lot. Sorry, I'm just getting some stuff set up here. No reasons. Like I like them a lot. Like I
Yeah.
had nothing bad to say about them at all. I enjoyed their company. I enjoyed interacting with them, and you just fall out of connection. And I think it's just because we are we're busy. We're busy, and we've sort of fallen into these patterns where we just work on our phones, and we look at the computer, and we look at the internet, and we watch Netflix, and we live in these ever shrinking bubbles of friendship and relationships with our friends and our family,
It's
and
also
then
the
we
hustle
die.
culture. Don't.
Yeah. That calling a friend and blabbing on the phone with them for an hour is inefficient, and it's not going to meet your um your productivity requirements.
Right. I mean, it's
Yeah.
one of these things where like I can have Netflix for some TV shows open in the corner of my monitor while I'm working on low skill tasks. And any moment that I'm not working to get shit done is a moment of sleep I'm probably not going to get. And so I mean, it's also the economy. It's we have reached a point where
I don't think the
surviving is
economy
just
stops
hard
you from calling a
sometimes.
I don't think the economy
No,
stops you from
it
calling a person that you
doesn't.
love and telling them how much they mean to you.
Yes, that I agree with completely. But I
Yeah.
just want to make sure that we acknowledge also that when you work three jobs, everything is harder.
Oh yeah, no,
Yeah.
absolutely, right? I mean, I think people have less time,
Yeah.
and then because we have less time and also less resources, it sort of constrains what you can and can't do,
Yeah.
and you put on top of that a machine that's attempting to harvest your attention, mech- using artificial intelligence.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a thing. I made my phone finally utterly uninteresting. I was able to figure out every little nook, because I don't know how you are, but you're standing there, you're in a line, and you pull out your phone, and and you look at what your phone has to say to you. And so I've been able to extract all I've got on my phone that is even like marginally interesting is my YouTube comments. So I can reply to my YouTube comments on my phone or emails.
Yeah. I
And I've
need
been
to
able
do
to
that.
remove, there's no social media apps.
Yeah.
I can't even get news on my phone. Like there's no way for me to read news on my phone. Yeah, because it's just like another thing that just distracts you from the world. And so I now like I post to Mastodon. I don't really read Mastodon, and that's it. I don't check Facebook, I don't check Twitter, I don't check, and instead I go and I hang out with one kid every Saturday morning. We do Saturday morning cartoons, and I come and bring coffee and cereal, and we sit around and watch cartoons.
That's
And
awesome.
then my other kid, we go on hikes, although we've sort of fallen off that because he's gotten really busy, and I sort of feel it. And then, and like,
Yeah.
and so I think, take the aggregate all of that low quality time into high quality time with the people who mean a lot to you. That's all I'm saying.
The one thing I learned a number of years ago from another podcaster, PG Holyfield, also an author.
Yeah. That was devastating to see PG Holyfield pass away.
Yeah. And before that, he had taught me some important lessons. Never be afraid to cosplay, even if you're trying to be professional at a con. Just live every moment. Be as silly and stupid and embrace it and enjoy it.
Yeah.
And always say I love you to people that you love, even if it's something that society tells you not to do. And luckily, he always did those things, and I always reciprocated. And so there were fewer regrets.
Yep, 100%. And I think that's it. I think, I think about the relationship, and I think an interesting thing is to sort of think through the relationships, and like maybe even like open up Facebook to give yourself a list of the people, and then say, like, if this person died tomorrow, would I have regrets? Yes. Okay, call them.
Yeah.
If this person died tomorrow, would I have regrets? Nah. I think, or you could say, if this person died tomorrow, would I have regrets? And no, because we are in constant contact, and I feel like we are living life to the fullest as a connection. So anyway, that's it. That's my sadness today. And it's like, it's not just that. I mean, there's like a whole bunch, like,
the world is on fire.
One of my best friends just had an important organ removed. You.
Oh, well, yeah. It wasn't
Right?
that important. It wasn't that important.
Well, fine. Yeah, whatever. So, life's fragile.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's move on.
Okay. What number are we on other than high?
695 says Trello.
Okay. Trello is usually... Oh, there's a fire truck. Are we going to have dogs howling?
It's not like a package is being delivered.
Can you hear that?
They are. Yeah, I can hear them howling. Oh, man.
They only do that for fire trucks. They don't do it for ambulances. They don't do it for police cars. Only fire trucks.
Yeah. They are mourning the fire that's about to be fought.
I think it's because the fire truck noise is a lot like a dog howling.
Yeah. But then they all do it. Like, they all whip each other up into a frenzy, and they all howl.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay, I think they have stopped. I'm going to start pressing the records.
Okay, I'll press record too.
Record on video.
Oh, can you give me that list of your reference list for missions?
Oh, yeah. Hold on. Stopping the record. Copying the link. Feel free to mock me later. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Wonderful.
Pressing record again.
I am also pressing record again.
Pressing that record. All right, here we go.
Astronomy Cast, episode 695, Mission Roll Call, Part 4, Lunar Exploration. Welcome to Astronomy a weekly facts-based journey through the cosmos, where we help you understand not only what we know, but how we know what we know. I'm Fraser Cain. I'm the publisher of Universe Today. With me is Dr. Pamela, a senior scientist for the Planetary Science Institute and the director of CosmoQuest. Hey, Pamela, how you doing?
I am doing well. Fall has arrived.
Yeah, we went mushroom watching yesterday, which is what you do in October after the heavy rains come back, and it's just so great. We found a mushroom that looked like a butt, and it was delightful. But I want to sort of put something in everybody's brains today. I was having a conversation with one of my patrons and talking about, I always ask people what, and they were telling me about a podcast that they had listened to and really loved, better than me, right? But it pod faded. So they stopped recording back in 2020. And this happens all the time, that there's some kind of content that you really like and you really appreciate the enthusiasm for the people who are doing it, and then they post less frequently, and eventually they just stop, and then you never find out what happened to them. But we don't know exactly what was going on, but my guess is they couldn't make it into a viable thing that could cover their costs to keep doing it. That almost all of the content that all of us consume is to some degree a volunteer effort. And I mean, even Astronomy Cast, you and I volunteer our time. Yeah. And we're able to pay a team. And I don't know if we would be able to keep doing Astronomy Cast if we didn't have our patrons that were supporting the work. So
we would not. I am not that good at editing.
This show would not exist. No, this show would not exist. So thank you to everyone who supports us. But just think about how you spend your time and the things that you love the most, and how you would feel if those things went away because the person who is volunteering their time couldn't do it any longer, and figure out a way that you could support them directly. I mean, if they've thought it through and they've got a Patreon, or they've got a way for you to give them donations or buy them a cup of coffee or join their Kickstarter or join whatever, if it's meaningful to you and you would be saddened by its loss, then please help them out. And even like giving them a donation to just tell them, this thing that you make is important to me, and you're making the world a better place. And so keep at it. And you may not make it a career today, but maybe you will in the future. And that vote of confidence for any creator is enormous. I can remember the times when we first started making things and someone sent us a donation out of the blue. So that's it. That is all I wanted to say. Just think about the stuff you love and figure out a way to support the people who create that stuff. Because if you don't, and if nobody does, then eventually it'll go away. Our journey through missions continues. This time we focus on the moon. There are many nations on the moon, near the moon, around the moon, traveling to the moon. It's a lot, and we will talk about it today. But first, time for a break. And we're back. All right. So this originally we were going to mash this episode. We're going to talk about the moon and Mars. I mean, maybe we were talking about planning it last week anyway. And we were looking at the moon missions. We're like, nope. It's whole episode. There's too much.
True. Very true. Yeah.
So where do you want to start? Because you gave me all those classifications when we set up things that are at the moon, on the moon, near the moon, around the moon, traveling to the moon. So which of those classifications would you like to start with?
So I think we need to actually start with a scorecard in a way, because everyone knows the US landed humans on the moon, because we're kind of...
Did they? I hadn't heard that.
Yeah, we're kind of loud about it. Right. But
that's how it works. Yeah, when I meet an American, they're like, "Hi, where are you from?" "Oh, I'm from Canada." "Oh, I'm from America. We landed on the moon."
It feels like that when you meet some people.
Oh
it really does.
They're justifiably proud of it. Good job, Americans.
But did you know that South Korea has something orbiting the moon?
Do I, Fraser Cain, journalist,
fair,
reports on missions to the moon, including the Korean Dunuri orbiter with its ShadowCam instrument provided by NASA? Yes.
Fine. All right.
Yes, I'm familiar with that. But am I everyday, science enthusiast? No, tell me about this.
So
sounds great.
I just wanted to start by pointing out that Soviet Union, which is a country that no longer exists, is in the big three that has managed to get there, orbit, uh, impact a few times in the process of
Yes.
learning to land, roved the surface, and returned things. Now, China is also in that category. So,
And how?
yeah, they're like, it's going to be interesting to see if they or the US are the next country to put humans on the moon. And I don't know which one it's going to be. I really, really don't. But India's right there. They haven't
Hmm.
done a return mission yet, but again, they have done the flyby, orbit, impact, because you do,
And lander,
and
rover.
lander and rover, and and so we have this growing number of nations that we need to celebrate because that
Don't
is
forget
more
Japan.
science being done. Japan is in
There's a
the
mission by Japan on
impact.
its way. No, there's a mission from Japan on its way right now.
Yes, but so far, their little what was it? Hakuto?
Yeah, Hakuto R. Yeah.
Yeah, it hit the impact stage. It did
Mhm.
not land as one would wish
Yeah,
for on
it
try
will
one.
not
No one really
qualify.
succeeds on try
Yeah,
one.
will not qualify for the current missions on the moon. I don't think we're gonna sort of talk about smashed wreckage.
No,
Um,
but we need to
but
acknowledge some of the smashed wreckage.
maybe, but why when we can also acknowledge a perfectly functioning spacecraft that's on its way right
This is true. Well, the thing I wanted to acknowledge was several of these nations owe, at least in part, the Google Lunar X Prize, which never
Yeah,
actually awarded anything, but started this vast new interest in getting small things to the moon, doing big things, and so Hakuta R, Bereshit, uh, the Indian
so many
mission.
smoking
Yeah,
craters on the moon.
it's true. It
Yeah,
is
I
true.
feel so bad for all these Google Lunar X Prize candidates who built missions that just crashed into the moon.
But
Yeah,
but what was amazing was time after time after time, it was the software that failed. And
sure.
you gotta love the fact that we're getting so good with the hardware. And anyone who's written software knows you can never anticipate every bug. You just don't want to find them on the way to the moon, and they found them on the way to the
Yeah.
moon. It's kind of
So
awesome.
I repeat the question.
Yes.
Shall we start with do you want to go by nation then? Have you is that what you're proposing? You'd like to start by nation? Do you want to talk about location? Do you want to talk about capability?
Oh man, there's
Choose
too
like we
many
can go any just
options.
choose one. Okay, don't make me choose. Okay, fine.
I no.
We're gonna go by nation. It's
All
been
right.
decided.
All
Let's start with the
right.
Korean Nuri spacecraft.
So this is one I have to admit I didn't know anything about until today. Um so I kind of feel like you, Mr. Space Journalist, who pays far more attention to
Yeah,
missions than I do, are really better off describing this mission. I
sure. Yeah.
acknowledge this. I have no pride.
Okay, no problem. Yeah, so I mean, like South Korea's wanted to get into the spaceflight game for a long time,
Yeah.
and there's kind of two parts to it. There's their ability to launch rockets, and their ability to build missions, and they actually completed both of those.
Yeah.
So this year they were able to get their first orbital rocket to fly, and they were also able to get their first mission to the moon, and this was January. Now they launched it on a, I believe they launched it on a Falcon, so it wasn't a Korean rocket that took it to the moon. And it's got a collection of instruments on board for analyzing the moon. You know, your common suite
Lunar
of
resources.
yeah, for lunar resources, mass or spectrometers. You've got all kinds of stuff on it. But one of the most interesting instruments that we've heard quite a lot about of recently is called ShadowCam, and this is like the Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter, which we're going to talk about, I'm sure, in a second, is a mission designed to uh, resolve features on the surface of the moon, but it doesn't do a great job in the permanently shadowed craters of the moon. And that's where a lot of this interest in the moon is, because that's where there could be vast reserves of water ice. And so the South Korean instrument with the shadow cam, it has 200 times the low light sensitivity of the Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter, but it's utterly overwhelmed. It's like, it needs sunglasses to look anywhere but into these permanently shadowed craters. And so it shows, and these things only are reflected by starlight. They're only
Yeah.
illuminated by starlight, by reflected light from the earth, and from just ambient light bouncing off of nearby crater walls. And yet it's able to give it enough light for it to be able to see into them. And you've got just these beautiful images showing all of the features inside these craters that Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter just couldn't do. So good job, Korea. And I really look forward to more missions coming out of that
And
country.
what's so exciting is like Lunar Flashlight was planning to do a fragment of what it's doing, and Lunar Flashlight failed as so many space is hard. Space is hard.
And the moon is particularly hard.
Yeah, yeah. It
Like, it's
eats
weird because it's like
things.
it feels like it's beguiling with its, with its lack of atmosphere and its
Well,
low
that's the
gravity well.
problem.
But boy, do spacecraft die trying to get to the moon.
It's true. And so all the science that lunar flashlight was going to do didn't happen, and now we have the South Korean mission. And what's awesome for those who don't know, the way this works is in the sunlit regions, all of the molecules get excited, they float around, and then they'll periodically land different places. And when molecules of volatiles, so things like ice, carbon dioxide, land in the permanently shadowed regions, they're like, oh, we're good here. We're just going to stay here. And so you can end up with these molecules piling up into detectable and potentially future resourceable units of stuff. And so we can imagine a future where we put the humans in these craters that have permanently shadowed regions, which are, first of all, thermodynamically a lot easier to handle, but then also hopefully have the water, the carbon dioxide. And with Denari, they're also looking at uranium and helium-3 and silicon and aluminum. It's kind of cool.
Totally. Let's talk about India.
So India is out there systematically going through all the steps and showing what they're capable of. And one of the things that I've heard people poo poo is, well, their images aren't as high resolution as LRO. Well, I don't care. They have they have tried all these different orbits. They are setting things up to be both communication systems and imaging systems. And they are setting rovers on the surface in places other people haven't put rovers. So you do you, India. Lower
Yeah.
resolution is fine. You'll get there. And they're doing all this other amazing stuff. Chandrayaan 2 only had an orbiter. Chandrayaan 3 is where they had a lander and a rover. They also have another orbiter. And they're near the South Pole, and this has added all sorts of complexity because normally we put orbiters going around the equatorial region, and so they had to adjust their orbits to be able to communicate readily back with Earth. It's kind of cool.
Yeah. And so, I mean, Chandrayaan-1 helped us even just understand that there was water on the moon in the
Yes.
first place. Like,
Yeah.
a lot of people forget that discovery of water on the moon was made with Chandrayaan-1. Now, it was an American instrument on board that helped make the discovery, but a lot of people kind of gloss over the fact that India helped us figure out that there's water on the moon. Chandrayaan-2, as you said, they had their lander and rover, and it failed, but the orbiter's still there.
Yeah.
And then with Chandrayaan-3, I guess it doesn't count anymore because it's now dead, but it went straight for the
Yeah.
landing. And so it didn't have the orbiter, it just had the lander and the rover, landed on the moon, did its 14 days of exploring, and send a whole bunch of science home. And then when lunar night set in, the spacecraft died.
Which is
So
kind of normal. That
it's
is
very normal. Yeah,
expected.
this is
Yeah.
this is how you roll. Yeah, and
Yeah.
and I mean, the budget on that spacecraft was so low that they didn't have the funds to put in plutonium to keep it warm, and that's really the only solution that you've got. Like, if you want to keep your spacecraft warm, you give it plutonium, either a little nugget of plutonium that just it can keep itself warm, like keep its batteries
Yeah.
warm, or like a proper thermoelectric, radioisotope thermoelectric generator,
Yeah.
like what you have on Curiosity and Perseverance. And so, without a without any way to keep itself warm, it died. But it was like, I forget the budget. It was under 100 million. It's crazy
And
what they were able to pull off.
and
Amazing.
they launched this on their own rockets.
Yeah.
This is one of those things where we have to give a shout out to India. Is another one of these nations that is now out there with multiple launch sites doing amazing things. Um, their launches are a lot of fun to watch when they do televise them.
Yeah, they live stream them nicely.
Yeah, yeah,
Hint,
they really
China.
do.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's we are a spacefaring peoples, and there's so many games in town. And yeah, I'm just going
Yep.
to keep saying that over and over because
Yeah,
it's
yeah, no,
awesome.
I think it's great. I mean, the moon is close, and it's a great place to send a spacecraft and
And
hopefully figure
practice
it out
crashing.
and practice crashing. Yeah, yeah. All right, we're going to talk about this some more, but it's time for another break, and we're back. All right, let's talk about Japan.
So Japan, Hokuto R. This was the saddest little mission. They've done so many successful things, but that one is near and dear to my heart because it started with the teams that were doing the Google Lunar X Prize, and I did a lot of work with the Google Lunar X Prize teams back in the day. And it was a technology demonstration, lost contact during the very final stage, and it turned out that their altitude estimation system did not. And so they just hit the ground at too high of a velocity. And LRO has gotten really, really good at finding what remains. And I kind of look forward to a day where it's easy to go back and forth. And we have like little museums set up around each of these craters where folks are doing both lunar archaeology and lunar geology of we know this dirt has only been exposed for this many years. So it's still
Yeah.
science. It's just future science.
And I think with Hakuto, as you said, this was one of the missions done from the Google Lunar X Prize,
Yeah.
privately funded.
Part of
It failed.
iSpace. Yeah.
Right. But so the one that is currently successful is called the Smart Lander for Investigating Moon, or
Yes.
SLIM, also known as the Moon Sniper, which is sort of a cool idea. And this is a tiny little spacecraft designed to put a lander on the moon. And the goal is precision. So they want to get within 100 meters of their target and demonstrate that they can put payloads onto the surface of the moon exactly where they need to go. And this is not coming out of a private agency.
No.
This is coming from JAXA.
Yeah.
And I've mentioned this many times in the past. Like if I had to pick my favorite space agency, it would be JAXA.
Yeah.
They do the coolest, most creative missions where
Hayabusa
like Hayabusa
missions.
2, right? They even brought
Yeah.
Hayabusa 1 home
Yeah.
somehow, right?
Yeah.
But Hayabusa 2 just like they threw a tank shell at the asteroid. They dropped landers, hoppers, the
Yeah.
stuff they have planned for their mission to Phobos. They launched a solar sail.
Yeah.
So
They
just
don't feel fear
they
failure. They
yeah,
simply are like, we are going to iterate this. And if it
yeah.
sounds dumb, we're still going to try it if there's the potential.
I need to get to talk to somebody at JAXA and just understand this perspective, because you
It's
feel
amazing.
this creativity and risk taking that come together with ambition into missions that you just wouldn't see out of NASA or China or
Yeah.
Europe. Anyone else is trying this kind of stuff, right? Let's put an anti-tank weapon on a asteroid mission, said nobody ever. But the Japanese said,
But
yeah,
then the
let's do it.
JAXs, and they had those little missions that basically flitted. They were essentially sprung loaded so that they'd hit and bounce and hit and bounce,
Yeah.
and were able to cover vast amounts of surface in the low gravity environment. JAXA just does cool stuff, but with Slim, they are doing it slowly. Like, you can get to the moon in a couple of days. You can. They are not. Slim launched back in September. They're the orbits for this, they're just going slow and steady and
Yeah.
not a lot of fuel involved. And
Yeah.
kudos to saving fuel and building expectations.
Yeah. So hopefully, we're in the middle time where we don't know whether this mission
Yeah,
is going to work or not.
it's
But I like
true.
their odds. I've got a lot of practice now in landing in places that are complicated. All
Yeah.
right, let's move on to China.
So China is another one of these nations that is doing slow and steady and constant development. Small steps, iterative design, clear long term plan, and the will and the long term budgetary planning to stick with it. That I have fantasies of long term budgets.
So
Um,
guess how many operational spacecraft, I don't know if you know this number right
I
now,
don't.
are at the moon right now by China.
By
Give me a guess.
just China, I would guess somewhere around 8.
Yeah, there's 5
Okay.
right now. Yeah. They've had 7 total, but
Yeah.
5 are operational right now.
Yeah. And they did landing on the far side. They were the first nation to do a landing on the far side. They were the first nation to really set up a good communications network using some really weird orbits. You're laughing at my definition of weird orbit, I suspect.
No. Yeah, well, you're talking about the relay.
Yeah.
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 Yep.
And I just love how they're very no nonsense and how they do things. My favorite, and this is the stupidest example, but it brings me joy. Their Far Side rover, and I'm going to let you pronounce all things Chinese. Their Far Side rover saw something off in the distance that the internet
Oh, the
proclaimed was a
Chang'e?
hut. Yeah,
Yeah, the Chang'e rover. Yeah, Chang'e 5?
I think it was 5.
Yeah.
The
Yeah,
Far
I mean it's
Side. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah.
And the internet said there is a hut in the distance, which makes no sense. And so they just very slowly roved over there until it resolved into a boulder. And it was just sort of like, we're not going to take your nonsense. We're going to see what this is. Slow and steady wins the race.
Yeah.
I'm just kind of enjoying watching it.
Yeah. So I mean, like China has been putting out these plans for their lunar exploration.
Hmm.
And the goal is humans setting foot on the moon by the end of the 2020s. Like now they're kind of targeting 2029.
Hmm.
And in order to do that, they're having to build a technology stack that can handle this.
Hmm.
And people who are listening to this are going to be like, yeah, but they stole it. Like, who knows now? Like, they stole bunches of it. But
They,
now a lot of it is developed by them. And so they're building a heavy lift vehicle, like a heavy lift rocket,
yeah.
like in the sort of Falcon Heavy class. They are building a new crew capsule
Hmm.
capable of carrying 5 astronauts or 3 to the moon. They're building the rovers and landers and the facilities, and they're planning all of this to sort of culminate in 2029 or 2030. And so you're seeing these landers, the sample return mission is a great example, right? They have
Yeah.
to land on the moon, they have
Hmm.
to collect samples, and they have to return those samples back to Earth. And that is, imagine it was humans instead, right? It's in a nutshell the process. And so they're doing science as they're exploring the moon, and then at the same time they are prototyping all of the major pieces of what it's going to take for them to send humans to the moon.
And
And
they're doing things no other nation has done. So, like, US and Soviet Union had both done sample returns. So they went to the far side and brought us a sample from there, which we did not have.
yeah,
I can't wait to see more in detailed science from that. But
yeah, and I think once again I have a lot of complaints about the way China shares its science.
Yeah.
But with the rovers and the landers, they're actually doing a pretty good job. So there was a paper that just came out sharing the results of their little farm they set up on the moon with the Chang'e 5, I
Yeah.
think, and they had a bunch of little seeds they grew. They had some fly eggs that they had taken. They had like a whole bunch of stuff that they tried all at the same time. And I reached out to the researchers and I'm like, "Oh, could you send me the paper?" And they got back to me. It was the weirdest thing. They sent me the paper. It was very bizarre to me. Like it never happens. Like I've sent so many requests to Chinese researchers, to Chinese
Ugh.
officials to comment on things, and it's just silence. And yet, I think with the science operations of their lunar exploration, they're actually doing a pretty good job of that. All right, you know what? We got to move on. So to some other country, I forget what they're called, but first it's time for another break. And we're back. All right, let's talk about the United States of America, who, of course, have put humans on the moon.
But not in our lifetime.
Yeah, in our lifetime, 1970. I was alive in 1972.
I was not.
Oh no.
Not
Yeah, I mean,
in my lifetime.
I was one. Sure, I don't
Okay.
remember. But anyways, but let's talk about the right now. What does the United States have operational at the moon?
We have Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter as well as Capstone. And we're working on other stuff, but those are the ones that are currently there doing cool stuff.
I mean, let's talk about Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter. I
Yeah.
mean, like this is a flagship that has done
Yeah.
so much incredible science and just given us the best pictures ever.
It and its twin Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter are both just like never dying Energizer Bunny of spacecraft. And Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter, may they never stop funding it, is capable of getting less than 1 meter resolution, depending on where it is in its orbit, of the surface of the moon, which means that if your average football player lays down, not football, basketball player lays down on the surface of the moon and assumes the snow angel position, they have the potential to be like 2 pixels by 2 pixels, which is significant when you are laying down on the moon. And with this combination of instruments that does the extremely high res, they also have other instruments that are doing larger areas at lower resolution. They have been able to catch the moon in a variety since its launch back in, launch 2009. Since its launch, they've been able to catch the moon in total in multiple shadowed conditions, watch with the thermal instruments, the constantly changing temperature as things are in and out of sunlight, so we can see how different regions of the moon respond thermally. That tells us about their heat capacity. We've been able to watch a solar cycle go by and see how the moon responds to high energy particles from the sun. Basically, if there is some cool discovery you have seen in the past 2 decades, one decade, it probably came from LRO.
I think about like the pictures of the lunar landing sites
Yeah,
with the
with the
footprints,
shadows. Yeah.
and you can see the footprints of the astronauts across the moon.
Right.
You can see the flag.
Yeah.
You can see the positions of the rovers, of like the little cars they took to the moon, and the wheel tracks. Like if there was a monolith on the moon,
It would have found it.
it would have found it. That's
Yeah.
how good that spacecraft is. Yeah, it's a stunning technology, and I'm always shocked that it's still operating.
Yeah, it's just
Like,
fine. It's just
yeah, it's
happy.
fine.
It's
It's doing a
doing
great
its
job.
thing.
Yeah, yeah. Like it somehow has just resisted the inevitable desire to crash into the moon, and it just keeps going. And then I guess the other spacecraft we should mention is the Capstone. You mentioned that
Yeah.
briefly.
So Capstone is NASA showing you can do things with tiny packages. Capstone is a CubeSat, and its purpose is something I'm not sure we've launched a mission to do just this one thing before, but it's kind of cool. So we're planning to put the Lunar Gateway, a space station for basically it's a ferry stop between the surface of the moon and space. We're planning to put a small space station there, and it's a sufficiently new orbit to be sticking things in. We don't have a lot of experience with staying in cislunar space.
Mm.
That they're just kind of sticking Capstone in the orbit that they're thinking about for Lunar Gateway and testing out what is the stability of this orbit. And that's a
Yeah.
cool thing to do with a tiny spacecraft.
Yeah, it's a smart idea. Like put the
Yeah.
spacecraft into the orbit, understand the radiation hit, just make sure you can remain in this orbit. What kinds of
Yeah.
orbital maneuvers are required to stay in this orbit? And this will give you a good sense of what it's going to be like when a giant space station is put into that exact orbit. And I think it's a really smart idea.
It really
Absolutely.
is.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad we didn't decide to mush together the moon and
Oh,
Mars because we wouldn't have made it. This was
no.
already, this may have even have been a bigger episode than the Mars one that's coming up, but
It will
probably
be.
not. Yeah.
Well, there's more alive at Mars.
There is a bunch. Yeah. Yeah. It's a busy place. All right. Well, thanks, Pamela.
And thank you so much to everyone out there who does support us through Patreon. Times are tough. We see that in your numbers. Um, to those of you still able to give, you allow us to keep doing what we do. So thank you. This week, I want to thank Don Mundus, J. Alex Anderson, Michael Regan, Michael Cullen, Peter, Janelle, Frodo Tenenbaugh. I'm so sorry. I never say it right. Matt Rucker, Antasor, Dwight Ilk, Sharesome, Mark Stephen Rasnack, MHW 1961 Super Symmetrical, Abraham Cottrell, Philip Grand, Jim McGeehan, Cami Racian, James Roger, Father Prax, Andrew Stevenson, Planetar, Paul Hayden, Smansky, Glenn McDavid, Benjamin Davies, Alex Rain, Stephen Coffey, the Air Major, Dean, Gabriel Galfin, and Sam Brooks and his mom. And we are so grateful to all of you who have joined at the Pamela attempts to pronounce your name level.
Wonderful. Thanks. Thanks, Pamela. And we'll see you next week.
Thank you. Bye-bye, everyone. And then they saved.
They sure did.
Oh, we are having a high pollen level count. That's the word. We're having a
Isn't
high pollen
spring
count day.
over?
So it's the corn. I hate the
Hmm.
corn. They're harvesting the corn. And when they harvest the corn, all the corn smut ends up in the air where it does not belong.
Corn porn.
Yeah, I dislike corn smut.
Corn smut. Have you ever had a pawpaw?
No, but I know there's a bunch of pawpaw trees around here.
I really want a pawpaw tree.
That can probably be made to happen.
It probably can't. I'm sure there's a place that'll sell pawpaws. Apparently, like they don't grow true to seed very well, so you really want to get a plant. Like you want to get one from
Yeah.
from a nursery, so I have to find a supplier. But I'm trying to put in weird plants into my food forest, and so I put all the easy stuff in. I've got raspberries and blueberries and plum trees and apple trees and all
Yeah.
that. Now I want the weird stuff, chocolate vines and Russian olives and
Oh.
strawberry trees and things like that. So I'm trying to find sources for everything weird.
Did you know that strawberry guava is not a combination of strawberry juice and guava juice, but is actually a singular plant that has a
Yeah.
singular fruit?
Yes.
I This is something that's just going to leave me dumbfounded at our inability to give things unique names
So I
forever.
want to give a shout out to one of my favorite YouTube channels called the Weird Fruit Explorer. And like this guy is, I don't know, I feel like we're, brother from another mother. All he does is travels the world trying weird fruit and then telling us what he thinks. And I love every second of it.
Oh man.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
adore this.
Yeah. And like stuff, and so I like a lot of stuff that I'm want to plant. Like if it'll grow in my backyard,
Yeah.
right? And so, but there's stuff that I just had never even heard of. And there's like 3 different varieties of goji berries.
Oh, that's
And like I've
cool.
never even had a goji berry, and yet there's 3 different varieties. People argue about which of the versions of the berries is the best, or a Nanking cherry. I've never had a Nanking cherry.
I
I want a
I
Nanking cherry. So
I want to be able to grow artichokes because
that's pretty easy.
they our climate is borderline right now.
Hmm. Yeah, we can grow artichokes here.
Yeah, so I'm thinking climate change is going to bring them into our region, but artichokes are a thistle,
Yes.
and I
Oh, but you get
love.
those cold snaps, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So like most of the time, you're way warmer than I am, but then you
Mhm.
can get a lot colder than I can get. So
Yeah. We have 4 seasons that are like I am and then name the season.
yeah.
So I'm trying to figure out like how big a pot would you need and can I put it on casters?
Have you had your first frost yet?
No, not yet.
Yeah, no, we haven't either. But it should be around the corner.
Yeah,
Probably
exactly.
within a week or so, we'll probably get our first frost. So normally we get our first frost mid-October, late October.
Yeah.
But it's definitely warmer. Like this El Nino. I've got a tomato plant volunteer that showed up in my garden, and it's still growing. Like it's still trying. And it's just like you're like I didn't plant it. It's like it came out from my compost.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
like I like your attitude, buddy, but winter is coming.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hurry.
Mistakes have been made. We're having I have a friend that's an amateur entomologist and the caterpillars that should have wintered over in their little egg sacs without hatching have hatched and so there's like
Hmm.
the giant silkworm moths that we get going to make it all the way to the butterfly stage or are mistakes going to be made? But we have a science question.
Yes.
Kangaroo Steve asks, if you were to design a lunar mission, what would you choose to do or look for? I would want to build a radio
Hmm.
thingy dish. They're not all dishes anymore, so I feel more accurate saying thingy because some of them just look like
Hmm.
mistakes made with Tinker Toys.
Yeah.
Um
Yeah.
that
Forest made of
yeah.
little metal trees. Yeah.
Yeah, so I would definitely do a radar facility, not radar. Well, that too, you can use both for the same thing. A radio radar facility so that we could extend the baseline for the Event Horizon Telescope and VLBA and things like that.
Okay, I
Um,
100% agree with you. I
yeah.
have no better answer than that. You're 100%. Like I'd like to know about water on the moon, but you
Hmm.
are 1,000% right.
Well, and the cool thing is if we actually did like radar, you don't have to worry about birds flying in front of lunar radar dishes or the
Yes.
atmosphere attenuating the power and things like that. So
Hmm.
just like go hunting for asteroids with radar, which we do some from the planet, but again, birds. We
Yeah, I
like
talk about
them.
this a lot that um, we can discover planets by their interactions of their magnetospheres with their star
Yeah.
using a radio telescope on the far side of the moon.
Yeah.
And like what a great discovery. Like we detected the flash of light coming from an aurora on an exoplanet that tells us that they have a magnetosphere,
Yeah.
right? Like about this exoplanet. Also, you learn that it has a magnetosphere. That's
Yeah.
handy, which we've got some like just bare glimpses of this now. But that would be amazing to just know
Yeah.
to find all these exoplanets. The first thing you detect from the exoplanet is the exoplanet protecting itself from solar flares, which
I
makes it more habitable.
I am still excited about the fact that like Parker Solar Probe is helping us figure out that Venus doesn't have lightning. And so like now we need to find lightning and not lightning and like understand what causes lightning. It's such a simple thing.
Mm,
But the fact that Venus doesn't have lightning is to me an astronomer, not a meteorologist. Very exciting.
yeah. Arjone says, what kind of science are they preparing to do on the moon? Will it be the same as Apollo, or are we going to do some more complicated stuff? I'm so excited.
I think right now they're mostly happy that they're going to be putting a person of color and woman on the moon. Um, yeah,
But
I'm
like scientifically, they're going to the South Pole of the Moon, which is a
right.
place that has increased amounts of water mixed in with the regolith.
Yeah.
And the question is, can this be a home?
Yes, yes. It's just I am not convinced that we're going to have more geologist shaped humans landing on the moon, and that continues to make me sad. I want more Harrison Schmitts. Harrison Schmidt is still attending, or at least he was pre-pandemic,
Yeah.
attending science conferences and scaring the bejesus out of grad students when he went to ask them questions and introduced himself at the mic as Harrison Schmidt, Apollo. Um,
'Cause he's a legit scientist. He's a
yeah,
geologist. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I've
So
talked to him a couple of times. Like, not many of the astronauts are active, but and like whether they're the space the shuttle astronauts
yeah,
or other parts, but Harrison Schmidt is part of the B612 Foundation.
yeah.
Is oh no, that's Rusty Schweickart. Sorry, yeah,
Oh,
Harrison Schmidt is
right.
yeah is but anyway is still very active in the scientific community, and um, you know, it was amazing that an actual proper geologist got to go to the moon.
Yeah, yeah. And I think there was one other planned if they had kept going, but they didn't
Yeah.
keep going.
Ralph asks, how would a helium airship behave on the moon?
It wouldn't.
Yeah, poorly.
I mean, there's no atmosphere to be lighter than. It would sit there going, "Hi, I'm inflated," while lying
Yeah.
on the surface. It would be a landed balloon.
Yeah. Um, TP Seeker asks, did we go over the red spot changing size? Astronomy Live did an
Yeah.
8-hour stream during layering. We did not. Did
Uh,
it
we
change in size recently?
I mean, we talked a few episodes back about how it was changing size.
Hmm. I mean, there isn't anything urgent that's happened.
No.
Like, it's kind of been unfolding over the last, say, 15 years.
Sorry, I'm laughing because an old denominator made the comment lighter than vacuum travel.
But
Yeah, no,
Arjuna asks,
go ahead.
does it make any sense to make a base on Phobos on the way to Mars and to use that
Yeah.
like the Lunar Gateway?
I don't know about using it like the Lunar Gateway. I simply don't know. There is discussion of putting a base on Phobos or Deimos, and I think Japan has plans too.
Well, they have I mean, they have a mission that's going to Phobos,
Yeah,
but there's been a lot of thinking about using Phobos as a base, and it's a great idea
yeah,
because when you go to Mars, you've got a say 9-month journey there. You've got either a 1-month visit to the surface of the planet, and then you have to come home with a 9-month journey, or you have to wait for the next time for things to line up. So you got to spend 2 years on the surface of Mars, and then you come home. You have to have your entire landing system and return mission all ready to go. But Phobos, even though it's really close to the moon, it splits the
Mars.
journey in half because you go to Phobos. It's very easy to get to Phobos propulsively
Gravitationally.
and land on Phobos. And then you can go into the Phobos research station. Um, you can switch spacecraft, and then you can go to a special lander that just goes to and from Phobos. There's plenty of volatiles locked inside Phobos to use to build rocket fuel. So, and of course, anyone who's played Doom, it's also the location of a portal to hell. So, there's that. Um, but yeah,
Yep.
no, I think like a lot of people just laugh and people will roll their eyes. But no, Phobos, setting up a base on Phobos is a great idea. And I wouldn't be surprised if it becomes absolutely necessary. And it's weird, right? Because you could
Yeah.
imagine people fly to the Mars, they go to land on Phobos, and we may have people on Phobos for a decade before anybody gets to the surface of the moon.
I'm
It's that
actually a fan of that because of biocontamination.
meh. I mean, We're going to contaminate the shit out of Mars. Come on.
I know.
Yeah. So like just what's 10 years? Like, you know what we're going to do. We're
So
filthy.
the question becomes, are we going to eventually do the Lunar Gateway thing of setting it up as a refueling station and having dedicated ferries that go between Phobos and the surface?
Yeah. Yeah.
That would be cool.
Yeah. And I think that's the infrastructure that gets us to Mars to stay. And that isn't just a giant, another version of Apollo, where the first human sets foot on Mars and then they come home and then nobody ever does it for 50 years.
Yeah.
Yep.
Bill Nash asks, can Twitch chat run Doom?
If it in any way is a computer, then yes. That's always the rule. That's the first question that anybody asks. Hey, did you hear that Twitch is removing its requirement for simultaneous streaming?
Yes, I am super excited.
But you're not a Twitch partner, so it doesn't really matter, right?
But it applied to affiliates as well.
Mm.
So, and I am an affiliate, so it is exciting.
When you say excite, is that millennium speak? Is that ooh? What is that?
That is internet chat speak.
Is it like I can has cheeseburger?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is it like if I say mood? Is that close?
I mean, like, it doesn't mean the same thing, but yes.
No. Okay. All right. I understand then. Other questions. We got 4 minutes left. Everybody make your peace.
I'm being told it is CosmoQuest's affiliate anniversary, which, yeah, that sounds about right. Yes.
Affiliate diversity?
Uh-huh.
Huh. Like for being Twitch?
Yeah.
So, just between us, does Twitch still suck?
It
Answer.
is.
Thank you for your answer.
Yeah.
Moving on. No.
It is not what you are looking for. No. It is. I kind of love the emotes, which is stupid.
Yeah.
It is far easier to set up for monetization. The monetization, because the audience is so much smaller, is not necessarily worth it.
Yeah. I mean, the problem that I always have with Twitch, because people are like, oh, you should be on Twitch. And then I go to Twitch and then nobody shows up. And I'm just like, well, why? If I'm going to, because there's just like not a lot of ways to find creators that are doing interesting things. They drive all of the traffic to the big creators.
Yeah.
But they don't do a job of discovery in the way that YouTube does.
No.
Where
Hello,
you can search for stuff and then you can find it. You can find creators that are doing things. You may not catch it when it's live, but you will you'll at least get some kind of, you can find these live streams after, but like it's impossible to find a live stream that happened on Twitch after the fact.
It is true. It is
right?
true.
And like interesting things happen inside that live stream and you can't find it. There's no way to get to it. And so there's like no effort spent. And the best way to have people find your content is to take your Twitch live streams and put them over on YouTube.
Yeah.
And the easiest way to put live streams on YouTube is to just live stream on YouTube.
Yeah.
Feels like why Twitch?
So
I don't understand.
So, I mean, it initially had a whole lot of promise. At this point, CosmoQuest's audience is okay. I know I can find my people either on YouTube or on Twitch, but if they just want to generally hang out and be highly interactive, Twitch works. And so if I'm doing tasks that are useful to have a body double to keep me like on task, I will do some of those things like working on programming new features, that I will hang out with other humans on Twitch doing. And that's not the kind of stuff that I want to have hanging out forever on YouTube.
What are the Twitch people in your chat saying right now after I threw the gauntlet down?
Null Denominator said discoverability has done nothing but get sharply worse in the 3+ years.
Yeah.
I've been active here. Bill Nash says Twitch sucks less than some of the other options. Kangaroo Steve is like, meh, fair.
Okay.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, like, I like the emotes. I like the interface a whole lot better than I like YouTube's interface. It
That's
just
interesting to
doesn't
me.
have the audience, and that sucks.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, I mean, like, I get 400 to 500 people joining me on my live stream.
Yeah,
on
and we
YouTube.
don't get that. So,
Yeah. And I'm not. And so, like, that would be a big number on Twitch, right? To
yeah,
have that many
yeah,
people. And yet I'm not a big YouTuber. Like,
right.
I'm not a big streamer. So, but I do show up exactly the same time. I don't know if the
Yeah.
schedule matters. I don't know.
It really does. It really,
Yeah.
really does. One of the things that there's just that YouTube algorithm that wants to keep you there forever and will keep feeding you new people.
Right.
And that is that discoverability. I don't understand why Twitch doesn't have that same,
Yes.
unless someone purposefully raids.
Yeah. And you even think about, like, Amazon clearly wants to build a large language model.
Yeah.
They need content that they can digest.
Yeah.
That content is in all of the Twitch streams.
Yeah.
And so they could digest that and use that as a way to then help surface interesting things that have happened. So, like, Skylius does reaction videos to some of my videos.
Yeah.
And I love it. But I never know when it's going to happen, and I never know when it happened, and there's no way to find it. Like, I can't just search for
Right.
all of the people who've done reaction videos to my content
Yeah.
so that I can see what people think about our videos.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, I have no way to know that this
Yeah.
stuff happens unless somebody literally tells me and goes, hey, by the way, this person referenced your video at this episode. I mean, you get the same thing with podcasts. Like,
Right.
someone said something nice about me in a podcast, and I had no way to know. And so I had to find the podcast, download the episode, scrub to the first right location, hear what was said in context. It's it's
But
really hard.
the difference is most of the podcast players will at least do so I see you're listening to these 5 shows. Maybe you'll like these
Right.
other 5 shows. And so they
Twitch
don't autoplay on you, but they are constantly trying to do the would you like to listen to?
Yeah.
And that matters.
Yeah.
And there's
Yeah,
less
it's
accidental nudity.
on Twitch.
No, on YouTube. Like, there's plenty of nudity on YouTube, don't get me wrong. It's just there's less accidentally discovering it when you don't mean to. There's some things that don't go with breakfast cereal, people.
But I think not having search is a benefit, I guess,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Like, if you're not going to be able to accidentally find your nudes on Twitch, I guess. But then it's, we talked about this a few months ago about how people were, like, watching Hell's Kitchen, like watching television on Twitch.
Yeah.
You're like, come on. Like, the only reason that you aren't all going to copyright jail is because it's so hard for the copyright holders to figure out that you're doing it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Twitch made that so difficult. So anyway, all right. Well, I'm not gonna. I think I'll probably simulcast on YouTube, Twitch, Facebook, TikTok, anything that'll have me, just because I want to be all places to all people.
Yeah.
Even in your dreams, everyone's dreams. Billboards beside the road. All right. I think we've reached the end of our episode. So thank you, everyone. Your homework is to call somebody and tell them you love them.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree.
And we'll see you next week.
Bye-bye, everyone.